But what's done is done. Hardy wins, so one of the Jarretts is going to be off TV for a while. I like that. Any chance we could get rid of both of them? Please?
Hey, they broke your leg. Wait a minute! Quiet!
You make me sick!
Quiet.
Hey, hold on. I'll solve this right now. I'm going to help both of you, okay? You can't have Karen without Jeff.
You can't
have Jeff without Karen.
Exactly.
You got to either have all of you or none of you. In this case, we're going to have none of you because you're both fired. Fired! Catch him!
Jeff Jarrett.
You screwed up everything!
You screwed up everything.
Screwed up everything!
I absolutely love Sting right now. Oh man, that was beautiful. And so cathartic too after everything we've had to put up with. Yet when I heard about the one of the Jarretts gets fired if Hardy wins the cage match stipulation, this is exactly what I was hoping for. I mean, Jeff had reached the point where it felt like all the focus on him was starting to hold the product back. Plus, he's always seemed pretty reluctant to put people over, which, to be honest, really bothered me. And Karen, well, hell, they've always focused on her way too much, in my opinion. I mean, I know she gets a lot of heat, but Jesus Christ, there has to be a limit. I mean, now with Karen gone, at least for a while, hopefully the knockout division can get back to focusing on, you know, the knockouts. This is the best thing that could have happened. Because with Sting being the one to get rid of Karen instead of her being ousted by Tracy or Velvet or Mickey or whoever, it just confirmed what I'd been afraid of the whole time. That all the focus on Karen had never been about using the heat she generates to get somebody else over, or to benefit, any of the knockouts in some way. It was just about pushing Karen for the sake of pushing Karen because TNA just loves this woman, I guess. But it just got to be too much. It's overexposure. Get them both off the screen. I mean, really, this couldn't have worked out better. I think the knockout division will improve now with the focus going back on the women who wrestle, and Jeff, I expect, would be more useful to the company in a backstage role at this point. There's just one thing I'm kind of wondering about. With the firing stipulation being announced online, like the day before the pay-per-view, and then the firing carried out on the first show after the pay-per-view, there was really no build-up to this. This all happened really fast, and after how much these two have been pushed, to have them be written off TV so suddenly like this was very strange. I know Jeff's going to be working on the India project, but they would have known about that well in advance, I think. Beats me. Maybe there's some other reason that Jeff had to get off TV in a hurry that we don't know about.
And my sources are telling me that he's suffering from a disease known as inflammatory bowel disease, or IBD.
Really? Well, that would do it. Damn, that's no good. I hadn't even heard about that. Boy, that really makes you think. I mean, if he was keeping that a secret, maybe he's got some other health problems that we haven't heard about, too.
Ulcers, megatoxic colon, diverticulitis, and even, well, gastrointestinal hemorrhaging.
Oh, man, that's rough. And at Christmas time, too. That's some bad luck right there. And I wouldn't want to be in his shoes.
With all due respect, he's also suffering from anal bleeding.
That poor bastard. And as if he didn't have enough stress in his life, what with it being public knowledge that his wife has bigger male genitalia than him.
I've got the biggest set here!
Man, those two have a lot of problems. Just think of the therapy bills. Anyway, Impact. I actually liked this episode quite a bit. Which surprised me because when I read the spoilers, I thought, nah, this isn't going to be any good. But I was wrong. This turned out pretty well. Wrestling-wise, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about, although there were two matches that made me mark out hard. But there were a lot of storyline developments that I was very pleased with. A few eye-roll moments too, unfortunately. I mean, the way they dealt with the AJ Bobby Roode situation really had me scratching my head. Miss Sting decides to give them the 5 more minutes that the crowd was chanting for at the pay-per-view. Literally. He gives them a match with a 5-minute time limit.
What the fuck?
Then when Rude weasels his way out of that one too, Sting restarts it, and then they finally get the finish that should have happened at the pay-per-view. So instead of having an Iron Man match with a satisfying ending or a rematch with a good amount of time, you had an Iron Man match with a stupid ending and a rematch that got 5 minutes and change.
Oh, what a bunch of bull.
Instead of going through all this convoluted weirdness, couldn't you have just had Sting come out at the pay-per-view or before this rematch started and say, fuck the time limit, you're going until we get a winner? You simplify the whole thing greatly and still get the same result. I mean, the finish was what needed to happen. Bobby Roode beat AJ, eventually, but the process of getting him there was so damn weird and needlessly complicated.
You people are fools!
And speaking of things that are needlessly complicated, how's that for a segue? Remember the Deuces Wild tournament from a couple years ago? Remember how they threw together a whole bunch of completely random makeshift tag teams for no discernible reason? Remember how stupid and pointless it turned out to be? Well, they brought it back. This time it's the Wild Card tournament, and oh man, does this thing look like it was thrown together in a hurry. They broke up established tag teams, they threw a bunch of random singles people in there, for what reason I'm not really clear on. But anyway, this is to crown new #1 contenders for the tag team titles for a match at Genesis, I'm assuming. So apparently it's going to be a pretty big thing. And that being the case, don't you think it would have been a good idea to make some kind of announcement about this beforehand? I mean, a bunch of people come out to the ring, and Christy Hemme says the following is a match in the Wild Card Tournament. Whoa, hold on a minute. You haven't even told us what the fuck the Wild Card Tournament is yet. Before you start this thing, shouldn't you tell the people watching at home what this tournament is going to be about? Or at least inform us of its existence?
This whole show is ridiculous!
You have Mike Tenay trying to explain this whole thing very quickly during the entrances, but that really didn't cut it at all. I mean, if you're one of those people who try to tune Tenay out as much as possible, you're probably pretty confused right now. Then there's all the pairings they came up with. Whoever had the bright idea to put Hernandez and Rob Terry together can kiss the darkest, hairiest part of my ass.
Nobody cares about you guys.
If there's any justice in this world, that'll be the one and only time we ever see those two jokers in the ring together. And then, holy shit, and then, Eric Young and ODB? You know what? If that team was made for any reason other than that the writers were just trying to amuse themselves, I will eat these sunglasses. I mean, I know a lot of makeshift teams are going to seem awkward, but even if you're doing a weird-ass tournament like this, wouldn't you want to at least try to create teams realistic enough for people to suspend their disbelief? We know fucking Eric Young and ODB are not winning a tag team title shot. We know Abyss and Scott Steiner are not winning a tag team title shot. We know Shannon Moore and Anarchia are not winning a tag team title shot. Looking at everyone entered in this thing, realistically, there's only 2 teams that look like they have any chance at all, and every other team is nothing more than an obvious vehicle to get those 4 guys from A to B. Now, thankfully, those teams look promising, but still, this whole thing looks like a really weird and overly complicated way to do something that could have been done a lot more simply. Nevertheless, I read the spoilers and I definitely liked the result, so I'm just going to try to let this one go. So those were the things that bugged me about this show. Also, no James Storm this week, which bummed me out. But on the other side of that coin, Magnus was back on the show. Fuck yeah! It's way past time they did something with that guy. Magnus and Samoa Joe, of all people, were put together in this tournament, and on paper, that seemed like the most random thing ever. But you know what? Fuck it. The crowd was into them, they worked surprisingly well together, they actually won their match, and they looked strong doing it. Sure, this team feels like they just pulled 2 names out of a hat. I don't care. If this means a push for Magnus and Joe, they can be as random as they want. Let's do it. Those 2 finally getting a notch in the win column was the first match I marked out for. The second one was the X Division match. Zema Ion versus Tony Nese. It's been nothing but Aries, Cash, Sorensen, and Kendrick for months now, but finally they're using some of these other guys, which I've been yelling at them to do for a while now. This was a huge breath of fresh air, exactly what the X Division needed. The match was really good, and they're doing a best-of-3 series for a title shot, so we've got 2 more of these to look forward to, and that makes me happy because this division was getting really stale with just those same 4 guys being used over and over again. I just wish we could have gotten some promos from these 2 before the match. I mean, they just threw them out there when they haven't been on the show in months. I was happy to see them, but we don't even know what their characters are yet. I mean, to be fair, Jesse Sorensen's in that same boat. At least Ion got to cut a promo afterward that gave us some kind of idea of what he's about, but that should have happened before the match to give us a reason to care about it. I mean, hopefully they'll do something with Tony Nese next week. Nevertheless, I like what I saw from these guys a lot, and the X Division just got a lot more interesting. Then there was a segment with Pope and Devon, where they talked about, that's right, Devon's kids. Whoa, hold on a second. It might actually be worth talking about this time. Devon tries to end this thing with him and the Pope because he doesn't like the influence Pope is having on Terrence and Terrell, blah blah blah. He tries to leave with them, but then Pope and the kids finally turn on him and Terrence and Terrell leave with the Pope instead. And this was probably the first genuinely interesting thing that's happened since this angle started months ago. Or, to be more accurate, it's the first thing that's happened, period. Sure, I still hate it, it's still stupid, but they attempted some honest-to-God damage control here. And finally, we have a reason to give a shit. The whole problem with this thing was that you didn't know why any of it was happening, and you had no idea who to root for because it was all this giant gray area. But at least now, all this maddening ambiguity is gone, and there's a clear-cut good guy and bad guy. It still makes no sense. We still have no idea what Pope's motivations are, or why the hell he's done any of this, or what his obsession with Devon's family is. But now we finally have a reason to cheer one guy and boo the other, and that's more than what we had before. Don't get me wrong, it's still way too late for me to care about this feud, but for one night, I didn't hate it. And, well, I guess that's something. I guess I ought to mention this too. There was a match with Gunner and Jesse Neal. It ended in a DQ pretty quickly, and then Gunner DDT'd Jesse on the concrete. And this apparently is going to be Jesse's exit from TNA. He's done with the company now. First of all, I do like that they're making an effort to rebuild Gunner, but if Jesse's leaving the company, why couldn't the match just have a clean finish before the DDT and the concrete? Was that too much to ask? Plus, this segment was over and done pretty quickly. I think the best comparison I can make is when WWE did something similar to use Sheamus to write Jamie Noble off TV. But when they did that, they spent some time on it to show just how horrifying the attack was and how serious his injuries were. But here, TNA just breezed through the whole thing really fast and didn't mention it for the rest of the night. It was like, ah, damn, Jesse might have a broken neck. But wait, no time to talk about that now. Next segment. I appreciate that they're using this to try to get Gunner some heat, but the whole thing was done so ineffectively. And even the DDT itself was pretty underwhelming. I mean, apparently they're going to be doing more of this stuff with Gunner, so maybe they can fix this. I like the idea, but the execution didn't turn out very well. So Jesse Neal is gone, which means Ink Inc. is done. Another tag team bites the dust, and that couldn't have come at a worse time. But aside from that, I really hope that Jesse leaving doesn't mean that Toxine will be going with him. I mean, she was nowhere to be seen here, so I'm getting the feeling she won't be sticking around, but I'd love it if they could work something out with her. And she can't be Ink Inc's manager anymore, but they could definitely use her in the Knockout division. I mean, she's a talented worker, a lot better than some of the other women they've got, so I don't see why this should affect her. Then again, I didn't see why Desmond Wolfe going on the shelf meant Magnus's push had to be affected, and we all saw how that turned out. So, we'll see what happens. And finally, there was the main event, which actually went into an overrun this week. You know, sometimes they have the overrun and sometimes they don't. I don't know why that's so inconsistent. I mean, if you've got the overrun, why not use it every week? The match didn't really interest me. I mean, Jeff Hardy versus Bully Ray, don't care about that. But the ending was cool, with Bobby Roode and Bully Ray putting Hardy through a table, and then Roode taking out Sting on top of that. That was great. They're doing stuff like that. Now, Roode looks like a big-time heel. You're running away from AJ so he can escape with a draw did nothing for him, but this is exactly the way they need to go with him. Although, I really don't care to see Sting getting physically involved in this stuff anymore. I mean, if they want to put him in the ring once in a while, that's okay, but I don't want them to make a habit of it. I mean, Sting is good as the authority figure. I'd like him to stick with that. There's no need to put him in the ring again unless it's for a really special occasion. And that's about it. You know, this show could have been a lot worse, honestly. None of the matches were that long, but without the overrun, they probably would have been a lot shorter than they were. But there were some good storyline developments, and the stuff with the Jarretts was actually pretty funny. With how they were being all lovey-dovey, and then they went to Sting individually and sold each other out. Boy, that figures. Like the first time I'm genuinely entertained by these two, and then they get fired. Oh well. I'm still glad it happened. I mean, with them off TV for a while, there's that much more screen time available for other people because, let's be honest, Jeff and Karen sucked up a lot of screen time. They're finally using some of the other X Division guys. Magnus and Samoa Joe might actually be getting something that resembles a push all of a sudden, fingers crossed. This is enough to put me in a good mood. Alright, I'm going to end it there. There's company over right now, and I'm working all day tomorrow, so I don't know when you're going to get this one. It depends when I have a chance to edit it. Might not be until Sunday, so I'm going to stop talking and start editing while I still have some free time. I'll see you next week, alright? Okay, later.